Welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting our new lecture of our Python programming course, that is lecture 11 of object oriented programming, where we have to deal with classes, objects, constructors, inheritance, encapsulation, and polymorphism. So these are the agenda of lecture 11 at this time, and we have completed all our lecture 10. So if you have not watched that video yet, so please watch that video and please continue with this video. I hope you understand all the topic in our previous video, and let's start this lecture 11, object oriented programming. So here we have just created some class. What is class? What is init? What is self? What is the all these things? What is object? All these things. So here are some examples. So don't worry all these things. So let's do one by one all these things. So let's move to further and let's talk about what will be covered today. So building software the object oriented way. Okay. So what is the agenda of our today's class? First of all, we have discussed with uh, introduction to OOPS, and second is the procedural versus OOPS. Third one is the four pillar of OOPS. Fourth one is the class, that's the blueprint. Fifth one is the object, the instance. Sixth one is the creating and using objects. Seventh one is the self keyword. Eighth one is the constructor, that's the init. Ninth one is the default versus parametric constructors. Tenth is the inheritance and its types. 11th one is the super function. 12th one is the encapsulation and access modifiers. 13th one is the polymorphism, that's the overriding and duck typing. What is this thing? Well, let's talk about. And the 14th, the last one is the key takeaways. That's the recap. Okay. So these are the these are the agenda of our today's class. So let's talk about one by one and cover all the topics in brief. Okay. So let's move forward. So first of all, let's talk about introduction to what does object-oriented programming mean. So object-oriented programming is a way of structuring code around objects. What is object? Let's talk about. That's the object. That's a self-contained unit that bundle together data and the behavior that acts on the data. I hope you understand. So when we talk about the models, the real world, like let's assume a model like a car, a user, a bank account, that each become code. Okay. Second one is the data plus behavior together. That's the mixing, and attributes and the function that use them live in one place. That's the mean of the data plus behavior. Third one is the scales to big projects. This is the most important why we use it. Okay. So independent objects are easier to build, test, and reuse. So object oriented programming means models the real world data plus behavior together and scales to the big project. So when we talk about the real world analogy, what does it mean? Just here you have analyze and imagine how the real world analogy work in object oriented programming. So like just think about a car. So in the car in a real world, it has attributes. What is the attributes? That is a color, a speed, fuel level. Okay, and behaviors like start, brake, accelerate. So attribute plus behavior. Object-oriented programming lets your code mirror exactly that structure. Instead of scattered variables and functions, everything about a car lives inside one car object. So this is all the real world analogy about the object-oriented programming. I hope you clearly understand the real world analogy. Okay, so let's move forward and let's talk about the difference between the procedural and the object-oriented. So like we have two ways of organizing the same logic. What does it mean? Like when we take the difference between the procedural and object-oriented, what does it mean? So in structures, so in structure based on structure, in procedural, codes are organized as a sequence of a function. we will cover in our previous lecture. That's the same procedural. Okay. What is the object oriented? Code organized as interacting objects. Okay, that interact with object and then the code will be organized. Second one is the data handling. What does it mean? So data and function are usually separate, but in object oriented, data and function are bundled inside object. Okay. So when we talk about the reuse, so reuse via copy and paste or shared function in procedural line. Okay. But in object oriented, reuse via inheritance and composition. When we talk about the growth, so gets harder to manage as it grows, and in object-oriented data scales better for large complex systems. In example, let's take about procedural based, that's a C early basic shell script. Okay, but in object-oriented, that's a Python, Java, CPP, and the C hash. So this is the key difference between the project procedural and the object-oriented. That's all. Okay. So let's move forward. And the most important thing about the OOPS, let's talk about that is the four pillars of OOPS. That is what the four pillars of object-oriented programming is. The ideas behind everything we will cover today. That is, first of all, let's talk about the encapsulation. What do you mean by encapsulation? Just think like when you build some data and methods together, and after that that controlling give the controlling access, that's the totally known as the encapsulation. That's the all data are binded inside the capsule. Okay, that's known as the encapsulation. What do you mean by inheritance? So one class reusing and extending another class, so that is the inheritance. Like what do you mean a class? I hope I think you don't understand at this time, but after the topic after you go deep in this lecture, then you clearly understand all about this topic. Okay. So inheritance in one class reusing and extending another class. What is a polymorphism? Like the same action behaving differently on different objects. These are the polymorphism, and the most important thing is the abstraction, hiding complex details behind a simple interface. Always remember, when you're hiding some complex interface, that's known as a abstraction. Abstract. Okay. I hope you clearly understand these four pillars of object-oriented programming. That is very very important. Why you have this question? So let's move forward, and now let's talk about we talk about what is a class, what is the object. So now let's talk one by one all these things and clear all your doubts. Okay. So first of all, let's talk about class. So what is a class? So let's remember, a class is a blueprint. Okay, blueprint. Yeah, a class is a blueprint, a template that defines what attributes. Attributes means data, and method, that's the behavior. So a template that defines what attributes, that data and method, that's the behavior, its object will have. A class itself holds no real data. It's just describe the shape. Okay, so these are class. How the class will be defined? So let's talk about these three key points. That is the defined once. Always remember, the class was defined once, like written a single time, used to create a many object. Okay, used to create a many object. Second one is the holds attribute. That means variable that describe an object's data. Third one is the holds method. That's functions that define an object's behavior. So these are the most point, and here let's create some class. So here are some example how the class will be created, and just see here. Here the class student, the student as a class, and after that here we have created the def init self name marks, self dot name name, self dot marks. That is the attribute, and after that let's def display of self. Okay, def display of self, that is the method, and print self dot name and self dot marks. Therefore the output will become that one. Okay, so let's do this thing one by one, and let's try. Okay, so first of all, let's do this thing in practical base. Now let's create another file, that is object oriented programming. programming. Okay, dot py. Done. So first of all, let's create a class. Okay, create a class. So let's create a class with the help of the class, and the class, if any student, yeah. Then what we have to do, we just create a class with the help of this. After that, the initialization, that's the init method, will be initialized here. Like what? Just see and do this step. Okay, yeah. Now just def init, yeah. Okay, these are the init, and we have some self name marks, yeah. So self dot name equal to name, and self dot marks equal to marks, yeah. I hope you understand this point. I think there is some confusion with you, so don't worry. We have to just create a class. How the class will be work, okay? And what is the attribute about it? We will talk in further slides, okay? So this means what? Just do this. After that, these are what? So these are attributes, okay? Attributes, attributes, and these are same attributes, okay? What do you mean by attributes? So attributes means what? Data. And method means what? Behavior. Okay. So now let's create a method, and after that just print this. Okay. Just do, yeah, def any method that's a display. Yeah. That display, that's a self. Then what we have to do? That's a print self dot name, comma, self dot marks, and now see what is the output. So, if like this, all these things, here the student and the not here all these things. Let's talk about just how we create a class here. Okay. Now, what we have to do? These are method here. Yeah. How we create a method with the method, that's a method. That's a def display. That's a display method, and its attributes means what? That's a data. Yeah. Data. Correct. So just don't confuse all this point inside this point. Let's just see how we create a class, how the this thing will not see here the working details. Just see how the class will be created. So here the class will be created, okay. And now let's move forward, and how you can see how the class will be created. So you can do this, okay. So now let's move forward, and let's talk about the anatomy of class. We use this thing, we use this thing. What does it mean? All these things. Okay. So let's talk about. So first of all, let's talk about the anatomy of a class. What does it mean? Like every part of the class definition has a role. Like when you create some class, remember we have created a class a student. When then def it, that's a constructor. When it, that a constructor. After that, self dot name, that's the attributes, and def display self, that's the method. We all told about this, okay. And what do you mean by method? Methods mean that's a behavior, and attributes mean that's a data, okay. So let's talk about one by one, okay. So here are class. Class, that's the keywords. That's start the class definition. These are the basic rule you have to follow. These are some class, these are the keywords. That's start a class definition. Okay. After that, we have created a student. A student means what? That's a class name written in Pascal case. Pascal case, you have remembered all these things. After that, there is a init. We start with double, yeah, start with double underscore and init and double underscore, okay. Yeah. After that, how it's run? This is the constructor that runs automatically on creation. Okay. Yeah. After that, we have a self. Self means what? That's a refers to the specific object being used. That's the self. After that, we have created a self. What does it mean? That's a refers to a specific object being used. And the main thing about the display, that is the method. Okay, that's the data, and that's the display is the method. This one, and the method behavior available to every object. Okay, so I hope these are all the anatomy you I think you understand all this point why we use why we use this and what does it mean. Okay, so now let's move forward. And the class, we talk all about what is the class, and now let's just talk about what is the object. What does object mean? Okay, so object, what is an object? So an object is a real instance created from a class. Remember, an object is a real instance created from a class if the class is the blueprint. If the class is the blueprint, the object is the actual thing built from it. I hope you match the all dot how this thing work. Okay. So if the class is the if the class is the blueprint, the object is the actual thing built from it with real values stored in its attributes. So, like when we talk about created from a class, that's also called instantiation, and second one is the has a real data. That means its own values stored in attributes. So first of all, it's created from a class, and the second one is the has a real data. Third one is the meaning object one class. What does it mean? That's each object keep its own separate data. Like let's talk about some real world analogy, and let's talk about the blueprint versus house. What does it mean? Class is the blueprint, and the house, that's if you have created a real world, real instance. Okay, so a house, that's the blueprint, that's a class, correct? Describe a room and layout, but you can't live in a blueprint. Remember, so you can't live in a blueprint, correct? So once builders use it to construct an actual house like an object, it has a real address. Real address means what? That's a real paint color, real furniture. That's the difference between a class and an object. So these are the difference between the class and object. I hope you clearly understand what do you mean by class and what do you mean by object with the help of the blueprint versus house. So let's move forward and let's take a quick difference between the word class versus object side by side. Okay. So in class, the blueprint or template defined one, like it describes a structure only, no real data yet. What does it mean? Like when you created any class, like a class dog. Okay. After that, you create as any init function here, def init self and name. So self dot name equal to name, and here what? That dog is the class. You are correct. Okay. And when we talk about the object, what does the object mean here? So a real instance built from the class, holding its own actual values. What does it mean? So uh, let's talk about like we have a any yeah, class will be created, and after that when we object will be created, that's a real instance. Yeah, so what does it mean? So a real instance built from the class holding its own actual values, like buddy equal to dog of buddy. What does it mean? Like when we create, yeah, so here the buddy, this one is the object, and the capital buddy, this one is the its real data. Remember, so buddy is this is the object and this is the data. So we will talk all these things in the practical base. Just see the key difference between the class versus object. I hope you clearly understand this point. Okay, so now let's move forward, and the main thing, how this thing works. So let's talk about one by one. Let's talk first, create our first class after with the help of the object, creating and using object. One class, many independent object. Always remember, we have to create a one class at a time, and after that, the multiple object, we have to many independent object we will use. Okay. So let's talk about all these things. So we have always done this thing, class student, all these things here. That's the attributes and that's the method. All done. Okay. Then now we create a object. Okay. So let's create object. Okay. Now what we have to do, yeah, so let's create, first of all let's create object and do this thing. Okay, here we have to done, and on just to create object, that first object is as what, student one. Now student one, that student, yeah, here we also use the Pascal case, that's the better for us. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so student, remember this one, a student of, that's the name is what, any name, that's a Ria, and after that Ria, and the marks is what, 94, correct. After that let's create s2 object, that is the same, yeah, that is the same, a student, a student, yeah, anything, stay Kasha, and marks is 96. Okay, now these are object one, and these are object two. Okay, so what we have to do after that, so now let's move forward. Created, done, and the object two will also done. Okay, now what we have to do, so just we have to now we have to just print all these things, like how this thing will work, and with the help of the method. So how this thing will work, just see here. So we have to do this thing, s1 dot display first one. Okay, so that's a display the first one, and s2 dot display second one, and now just see output. So in S1 display, that's mean what? S1, that's the name as the RIA and marks as 94. Therefore, the RIA 94 will be printed with the help of this. And the ASA 96, that's the S2 object. So we have create here the attributes and here the method. We have create a real world, that's the object. And after that, we have to just display with the help of the method. I hope you clearly understand all this point, how this thing will be work. There is no doubt all these things. So how we create a class, what do you mean by init, what do you mean by method display, what do you mean by object, how the object will be created, and how the all print system work. Okay. I hope you clear all these points. So now let's move forward. So let's do some practice, and if you do some practice, then it's all clear for you. Okay. I hope it's clear understanding. Okay. So now let's move forward, and so these are all the things, how this thing works, how we create object, create a unique object, how this thing work. I hope you understand. Okay. Now, why we use self? What does it mean? We created all these things, so but we don't know why we use self here. So the self keyword, that is how an object refers to itself inside its own class. What does it mean? So like when we create a class, that's a class counter. After that, def init, self and start. Okay, self dot count start, done. So def increment data self dot count plus equal to 1. What does it mean? Let's talk. So first of all, that's the first parameter. That's always every method takes self as its first parameter. That's the rule you have to follow. Okay. After that, points to the caller. What does it mean? So whichever object call the method self it that object. Okay. Third one is the passed automatically. What does it mean? So Python supplies it. You never pass it to yourself. Remember. Okay. So just take about some note. Just see some note like a C1 equal to counter of 5. Now here. Okay. We have created an object that is C1. Yeah. You have to just do C1 equal to counter of 5. Internally runs as counter dot increment of C1. Remember. Like C1 is passed in as self automatically. So self dot count belongs to C1, not any other counter object. So these are how we use self keyword. You understand? Okay. So now let's move forward and talk about what do we mean by the constructor. That's the init method. Why we use this? Okay. So a constructor is a special method that runs automatically when an object is created. Like what? So in Python, it's always named double underscore init uh, double underscore, and it's typically used to set up an object initial attributes. Okay. So what we have to do, like first of all, it's run or creation. Yeah. First of all, it's run or creation. Second one, that the creation means what? Creation means that the call the instant a student executes. Second one is the sets of attributes. That's the assign starting values to self dot attributes. And third one is the never call directly. Most important thing that the Python invokes it for you automatically. So these are the all the how the init method will work here. And when we create some this one. Okay. Now do this. Okay. Yeah. So with the help of edit method, we can do this. Okay. So what we have to do here, let's do this code on practical base, and now let's talk about. Okay. So first of all, now let's create class. You have to just do this new book created. Yeah. So we are using the init method here, and there's a self, title, and price. All this thing here, all this thing here. Now, first of all, what we have to do? We have to just create an object. create an object with the help of class, and the book name is the anything. That's any book name you have to take. Yeah, here what is that? Yeah, it's a Python, and the second one is the 499. Okay. Book name is anything, and here you go 499. Yeah. So anything you have to take. Okay. So after that, what we have to do? This all this thing done. What is this? That's a new book created. Okay. And yeah. So what we have to do? So these are all these things. And after that, if you want to print, if you want to do this with the help of the object and how this thing works. So this all these things. Yeah. So what we have to do at this time. So here the how the init method will work. You can see. Okay. So these are the all these thing about the init method. I hope you clearly understand all this point. Now, yeah. So now let's talk about constructor in action. What does it mean? So every object gets its own independent attributes. Okay, like if any create any class that's the name as the bank account, and these are all these things. We have a def in it, self owner balance. That's a zero. That's a default. Okay. Yeah. Balance zero. Yeah. So self.owner balance, and then we have created a method that's a def deposit. There's some self amount. Therefore self.balance plus equal to amount. Yeah. After that, we have account one, that is a bank account. That's the we have created a object here, this one, and also object here, this one. So after that, we have to do this one using of this, and then print this one. That's all another thing. Okay. I hope you clearly understand all these things. Okay. So what does it mean? Let's do this, and after doing this, let's talk about one by one. Okay. So yeah. So first of all, what we have to do? Yeah. So first of all, what we have to do? We have just created. Yeah. So just create any function. Just create any class bank. Yeah. Account and def. Yeah. With the help of the init owner and balance. With the value self dot owner owner self dot balance equal to balance. Yeah. And all this thing done. So what we have to do at this time, then create a method. So attribute will be created here. After that, let's create a method. That's method in def deposit self comma amount. Okay. Yeah. Do this def. Let's create a method def deposit So that's self comma amount where self dot what we have to create, that's a balance. Okay, so that's the self dot balance plus equal, that's the increment, that's a 1 second, yeah, that's the amount. Okay, okay, we have to write the same thing because I just want to understand all the same points you have to you, that so you can clearly understand all these things. Okay, so these are all the things. After that, this thing created, then now created a object, that's a D1 with the help of bank account, this one, and we have to do this owner and balance. So owner name is anything what just see here, that's a Mira, and any name and the value, and this one, yeah, yeah, this is the account one, anything you have to take, that's Mira, and uh, we have a balance that is the 1000. Yeah. Okay. After that, let's create our second account, bank account. Again, object name, that is the bank account. So that's the current, nothing. Okay. Now what we have to do, that's a two object will be created here. So at that this point, that's a bank defaults to 0. That's we have to give here. Okay. So after that, what we have to do, we have to just deposit some amount at like anything. Okay. With the help of this one, and then after we have to print. Okay. And now see what is the output. Okay. So what we have to do, like first of all, do this thing like A1 inside A1. Okay. So A1 dot deposit. How much amount? That's a 500. Okay. And now just print what we have to print. That is the A1 dot balance. That's a balance there. Okay. Yeah. So just print here A1 dot balance comma A2 dot balance. Yeah. Now just print and see what is output. Yeah. Just see, so in account A1 we have to do this thing, and here we have a default balance is 0. Here default balance 0. I hope you clearly understand this all points, like how this thing is work here. Okay, so you have to do this thing. You have to do this the same thing, and how we use all this thing with the help of the init, and we have created all this thing. You understand? Okay. Here are the some two objects. Here are the method. Here are the initialization. Here are the class name. After that, we have deposited some amount. That's a print this thing. Okay, this work. Okay, I hope you clearly understand how this thing work. Okay. So now let's talk. Let's move forward, and I hope it's done for you. Now let's talk about these two things. Okay, what do you mean by the default versus parameterized constructor? What does it mean? So two common constructor styles are, first of all, first one are the default constructor. Second one is the parameterized constructor. Parameterized constructor means what? So in default constructor, that take no extra arguments beyond self. That means what? That's every object start with the same fixed values. Okay. So just see here, we have created some class robot. and we have subject init method and the self, then the self stated that's idle. Okay. Then we have created any object that's R and use this, and that's the object always idle because the status is idle, so that's the default. That value is always given. But what the parameterized constructor means accept arguments, so each object can start with its own custom values. Means like when you create some class robot, after that the def init method will be initialized, that the self status, then self status. Here we have to provide that value. Like here we have to also get that the idle is always idle. But here we have to get provide some values, some parameter, and some arguments inside the when we created the object. Okay, so these are the parameterized constructor and these are default constructor. I hope you clearly understand the difference between these two constructors. Okay, now yeah, so at this point we have done all these things. What do you mean by the init, what do you mean by the constructor, what do you mean by the method, what do you mean by the attribute, what do you mean by the all the four pillars, all these things we have done. Okay, now the most important thing is what? That's the inheritance. Most important. Always remember these are the very important things. So let's talk about the inheritance. Let's talk about the introduction of the inheritance means what? Like yeah, you can clearly imagine all these things. Just see here. Okay, just see inheritance list. Let's one class. That's the there's just some child class. Okay, reuse the attributes and the methods of another class. That's how the parent class. While adding or overwriting its own. What does it mean? So like we have a some class, like we have a parent child class. Okay, so first of all let's talk about let's just see this diagram, and now just animal, that's why we have a class. And after we have a two types of that's your dog, and then is a class. So dog and cat both inherits the data from the animal. What does it mean? So it means dog and cat both automatically get whatever animals define. Yeah, it sleep and can still add their own unique methods like bark or meow. So it can take the all the genetics from his parent class, that's all these things, and he can also add something from his own taste. Okay, so yeah, genetics is good for this. Like he can take that's how the parents class how he'll sleep, all these things. Okay, so these are the he can take from the parent class. Okay, so first of all, what does it mean? That's a code reuse. What do you mean by inheritance? That's the key point. That's a code reused. That is what? That's the common logic is written once in the parent with the help of the code reuse. Second one is the extends behavior. That is what? So child classes add new attributes or methods. Yeah. Third one is the models real hierarchy. What does it mean? Like if we talk about some example, like an animal, that's a hierarchy. That's the animal. That's all these things. Take dog. That takes some parts from his animals. That's the parent. And car. That's always take like a vehicle. So this is how we inherit something. So these are the examples. Okay. So yeah, let's move forward and let's talk about some syntax of the instance and take a one example. So like a child class is written with the parent in the parenthesis. Like what? Just see. Okay. Now let's create something. Okay. And after that, let's do. Okay. So first of all, let's do this in practical based. Okay. So now we have deal with inheritance. Yeah. So inside inheritance, first of all, what we have to do, like create a class that's a animal. Yeah. Then def init self comma name, right? Name. Yeah. Self comma name. Then do this. Then self dot name equal to name. Then I'll create a any method that's a it, and in it we have to just put self and just print this thing. What we have to print here? So print self dot name. Yeah, it is. That's the name. Okay. Use the help of the F string. We will talk. We will told you all these things. Okay. So here self dot name is eating. Yeah. So we have created the parent class. That's the animal. Done. After that, let's create a now let's create that is the anything. That's a dog. Okay. Okay. That's inherited from the animals. Okay. So let's do now. Yeah. Here the self dot name is name, and if you have to put some bark. Okay. So let's talk about. Yeah, let's create this one. Now let's create another class, child class dogs. That's the inherited from his parent class. That is the animal. Hope you understand this point. So what we have to do here? So we have to do this thing like yeah. So def, not use def here. So we have to just do this thing. We have to just create this one. Yeah, def. Next create a new method that's a bar, and bar inside what is that? That's the self. Yeah, yeah. After that, if yeah, the method will be created, then we have to do this thing. Then print as a string self dot name sage woof. Okay. So the child class also will created. Then what we have to do? The main funder starts here. Just see. Okay. We have to do this thing. Then create an object. The two class will be created. Then create an object. That's any object. We have a D, and a D. That's we have a class. That's a dog. And in dog, what we have to do? We have to put any name. Like any name. Okay. Just give like we have a self dot name. So we have to put some name. That name is the buddy. Okay. Buddy. Done. So now just do this. Now just do d dot bark. Yeah, d dot bark and d dot it, and now see what is the output. It. Okay. I hope you understand all this point how this thing will be created. So first of all, we created our first class. That's a parent class. That's the animal. Then we have created this thing, and after we have inherit the created a new class. That's a dog. Inherit some. Read the name from the animal. Yeah, and also use some owl hinge. That's a bark this thing, and now just see what is the output. Now just print and see. So if d dot it means that's this one. So inside this one, this goes to this one, and here f dot self dot name is eating. So d dot it, so self dot name that's inherited, and the buddy, this one inherits from the animal, and the buddy is eating done, and the buddy say woof. Here done. I hope you understand how the inheritance will work, and how we create the two classes, the parent and child class, with the help of the inheritance. Okay. I hope it's done for you. It's clear understand. Okay. So let us if you do some practice question, then you clearly or more understand all these things. Okay. So these are all these things that inherited from animal and defined in dog itself. So these are the main things you have to put here for the better understanding. So these were done inherited from animals, yeah, animal. Okay. And this means what? That is defined in dog itself. Done. I hope you clearly understand how the inheritance, the syntax and the examples of the inheritance is this. Okay, so done. Now, the main thing. Let's talk about the types of inheritance. What do you mean by the types of inheritance? Let's do. Okay, so we have different ways classes can relate to one another. What does it mean? So, first of all, when we talk about the types of inheritance, so our first thing is the single inheritance. What does it mean? So, one child inherits from one parent. Always remember, in single inheritance, only a one child inherits from one parent. Like here, the example. Yeah, like here, how the class dog and animal were created with the help of a single inheritance. Second one is the multi-level inheritance. What does it mean? It means a chain grandparent, parent, child. What does it mean? So we have created this one like we have a as a grandparent, B as a parent, C as a child. So the child inherited from the grandparent and the parent inherit from the grandparent. So these are the multi-level inheritance. Okay. Third one is the hierarchical inheritance. What does it mean? So multiple children inherit one parent. Understand? Like class B of A, and like we have only a one parent. Here you have a multiple is the A, B, C. A as a grandparent, B as a parent, C as a child. But in a hierarchical, we have only a one parent, that's the A, and here are the two child. Like look, like, just take an example like we have an animal, like a parent, and after that we have a child. First is a dog, and second one is a cat. So these are the example of hierarchical. Like so we have only a one parent and two child. Hierarchical, and the fourth one is the yeah, and the fourth one is the multiple. What does it mean? One child inherits from several parents. These are the most important. There is only one child, and in one child here are two parents, A and B, and the C as a child. So these are the multiple inheritance. I hope you understand uh, all this point, how the single instance will work, multi-level and hierarchical and multiple. So these are the very important thing about the instance to clearly understand. Okay. So now let's move forward, and the most important thing is here the super function. What does it mean? Let's talk. So inside the super function, calling the parents class from the inside the child. Yeah, remember calling the parents class from inside the child. How this thing is possible? Let's do. So just see this example and analyze. Okay. So we have created a new class, that's the animal. Yeah. So in animal we have created this. It is self-name, self-name, name. Correct. After that we have inherited that we have created a new class, that's the dog that inherited the all things from the animal. That's this one. This one that's a self name and breed. So name is what we have to do. That's a breed is okay. Okay. So but super dot init name. The main point is here. Super dot init name that runs animal constructor. Remember that runs animal constructor with the help of the super function. After that, we have just created name and breed and just print. Okay. So how this thing work? Let's talk about and yeah. Okay. So let's do this. Okay. So let's do this practical. Let's do this example on practical base so you clearly understand this point. Okay. So now what we have to do, so first of all, let's do this for your better understanding. So we have the super function. Yeah. Yeah. So what you want to do this. First of all, let's create a class. Class animal. Yeah. def init self comma name. Here self dot name equal to name. And now what we have to do now, let's create another class, that's a dog, that's inherit data from the animal. Okay, yeah. So these are the single intents. So here what we have to do, so now let's create def init self dot self comma name comma breed. So self dot name, yeah. So with the help of the super function we have to do this thing, not just do this. Super dot init, yeah, super dot init, and then what we have to inherit it, that's a name name we have to just inherit. And after that just do this thing, self dot breed equal to breed, none. So these for two classes will be created here, and after that what we have to do, so let's create a object, that's a d1. So d1 equal to anything, like d1 equal to we have dog, that's a name is Buddy, and breed is Labrador. Yeah, the best. Yeah, the Buddy and the Labrador. Okay, Labrador, radar. Okay, done. Now what we have to do? Just to do this. Now just print d1 dot name here, and after that d1 dot breed. Yeah. Now see what is the output. So so name as the Buddy and the breed as the Labrador. So I hope you all understand how we use the super function here. So from inherit some data from this with the help of the super function. So I hope you clearly understand this point. There is no doubt at this time. So that's better for you. So let's move forward, and now let's talk about the another one. Yeah. So these are the example of the how the super function will work. So now let's move forward, and now let's talk about encapsulation, the introduction of the encapsulation, how it's work. Okay, so encapsulation means what? So encapsulation means bundling data. Encapsulation means bundling data and the methods that operates on its inside one class, and restricting direct access to some of that data from outside. Like let's talk about this point. First of all, these are the protects internal state. First one, that's the outside code can't corrupt data directly. First one. Second one is the control access. What does it mean? Data is read or changed only through methods. Another thing, not valid. Okay. Third one is the hide implementation. What does it mean? So internal can change without breaking outside code. That's the mean of the hide implementation. Okay. So let's talk about the capsule analogy. What does it mean? So a medicine capsule hides its content inside a cell. Okay. You take the whole capsule as a unit, never touching the powder directly. Encapsulation works the same way. A class wraps up its data, exposing only what's needed through its method. So, with the help of the capsule analogy, you can really understand what do you mean by the encapsulation. I hope there is no doubt at this point. So now let's move forward. Now let's do this. So we have something like what? Just so encapsulation, that's known as the encapsulation X modifiers. What does it mean? So Python signals access level through naming, not strict keywords. What does it mean? We have some levels, that's naming, and some meanings. Okay, okay. So like we have public, yeah. So we have some public, like public means that we have created a public variable, that's a name. This means what? Accessible from anywhere, no restriction. Yeah, accessible from anywhere, no restriction. But what do you mean by the protected? Protected, that's created with the single underscore name. What does it convention? Convention intended for internal subclass use only. Okay. Third one is private. What does it mean? It starts with the double underscore, that's the name. What does it mean? Name magnet, not directly accessible from outside the class. These are the private variables. So these are the example that we have a public, we have a protected, and we have a private. How this thing works? So first of all, like when we create some class, that's a class account, and that's the def init self balance, self dot balance balance. That's the private attribute. But what we have to do, that's a def get balance safe, and then return self dot double underscore balance. Yeah, double the self dot double underscore balance, that create a private attribute. When you return self dot double underscore balance, that's a control access. So these are the whole these things that how will be created. So I hope you understand what do you mean by the public attribute, protected, and the private attribute. How this thing works with the help of the normal no in public attribute we have a no nothing that accessible from anywhere, but in protected I start with the single underscore name, but in private I start with the double underscore name. That is the private, that's name magnet, and not as accessible from outside the class. So these are the examples. So now our main thing is polymorphism. This is also a part of the four pillars of our object-oriented programming. So in polymorphism means what? It means many forms. Many forms means what? The same call, different behavior. I hope you understand. Okay. Polymorphism meanings means what? Poly, many, morphism, different form, many forms. Okay. So polymorphism lets the same method name behave differently depending on the object calling it. The most important thing about this, how do you know what do you method overriding, or what do you mean by the duck typing? All these things let's talk about one by one. Okay. So in method overriding, what we have to do? So in method overriding, we have created like just here, we have created a class animal, def escape self, and then print done. Then also a class dog animal that inherited when def escape self also from this here, and overrides parents here, and print book. So here some overrides the parent class. So that's known as a method overriding. And what do you mean by duck typing? Like see here. So for pet in dog and cat, like pet dot escape, so it responds in own way, like woof, meow. You can do all these things. So with the help of this duck typing, so these are the example of duck typing, and these are the example of method overriding. That's override anything, overrides from the parents, anything. Okay. So these are the difference. So let's talk about same interface. What do you mean by this? So like every subclass exposes the same method name. Always remember. Second one is the different implementation, means each class defines its own version of that method. Yeah. Third one is simplifies calling code. What do you mean by this? Yeah, loop over any object and call the same method safely. So these are all these things about the polymorphism. Just remember the polymorphism is different forms with the help of the overriding, method overriding, and the duck typing. So these are all these things about this. So I hope you understand all this thing, how this thing work. This thing now, when we talk about the encapsulation, that's a method. So what it means, like when we talk about encapsulation, one second, encapsulation. Yeah, these are the uh, uh, yeah, these are the level name. That's do this. Like if you do this, let's talk example. That's name. That's name. That is the public. Public. And if you use the single underscore, then we use a name. That is the protected. Yeah, protected. Done. Protected. And if we do this double underscore name, that is known as the private. So I hope you understand how this thing works. So private only accessible from this. Okay. So with the help of this. Yeah. So now let's move forward. You have to take the all example how this thing works, and all this thing method overriding duck typing we also done. So now see this key takeaways. What do you mean by this? So when we talk about, let's talk a recap. So object oriented programming organized code as object that bundle data and behavior. You understand? Second one is the a class is the blueprint and object is the real instance of it. This the also thing you also understand. Third one is the we have a init is the constructor. It runs automatically on creation. Yeah. Fourth one is the self refers to the specific object a method is called on. Fifth one is inheritance lets the child class reuse the extent of a parent class. Also done. Encapsulation, that's encapsulation. I also told about the capsule analogy. So encapsulation restrict access using public, protected, and private naming. I will told you. And the last one is the polymorphism. So polymorphism lets the same method behave differently across classes. So these are all these things. So I hope you clearly understand all this point. There is no doubt at this point, and I hope it's all done for you. So enough for today. There is a I hope you understand all the fundamentals about the object-oriented programming and how this thing works. So let's do practice. And after this, we will do some practice questions. Then you clearly understand what do you mean by this. Okay. So do practice. And if you have any doubt, put in the comment section. So if you like this video, please like. Doubt, please put in the comment section. And please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon. So I hope it's done for today. So thank you.